Hi guys, this is Dennis Oakley, and today I'm going to be talking about the Spotify business model canvas, and I'm going to talk you basically through the whole business model, how Spotify works, how they make money, and some of the advantages and disadvantages of the business model. So, way back in history. You had the record labels, and they used to make physical CDs, tapes, and LPs, and you'd pay £10, $15 for each one of them. Then along came this thing called Napster, and then people had stripped off the songs off the albums, uploaded them online digitally, and you could download them all for free. And this was really good because instead of having to pay $15 for an album where you might like one song, so you're paying $15 for a song, you could download them from online and you got them all for free. And this was absolutely great. And it trashed the business models of many of the existing publishers, and they saw their market share, their revenue absolutely tank. And then a lot of the record shops on the high street also went out of business because nobody was going in and buying music any longer. Record labels came back. They tried digital rights to stop people stripping the music off their CDs to protect them, which a lot of people didn't like because that then stopped you creating mixtapes. So this was the situation very roughly when Spotify came along a number of years ago, and they said to the music publishers, okay, what we'll do, we'll create a streaming platform where people can't download. But they get absolutely all the benefits. They get the music wherever they are, wherever they want, but they have to pay for the music in a way. So you're not going to be getting as much as you were before, but we think that you're going to be able to get quite a lot of money. And they managed to persuade the music publishers to sign up to this. So I'll now talk through a little bit about how this works. So over here on the right hand side, the customer segments very much the millennials, some of the Gen X like me who listen to a lot of music and were fairly techie savvy. And what we got was we got low cost music wherever we were. So I get it on. If I can bring my iPhone across, we got it on there. We got it on my iPad, on my Android, or on my laptop. Pretty much wherever I got a digital device that's got access to the internet, bang, I can listen to music. So it was the Walkman revolution, but even cooler because instead of just having a tape, you got all the tapes that were ever made. It was like I can listen to Sufi music from Turkey. I can listen to stuff from Jamaica. I can listen to rap, hip hop, absolutely any type of music that I want, classical even, just by switching a button. So awesome. It was like having a million tapes in my pocket, going well beyond what was possible in the iTunes store. So that was really, really cool. On the same side, it's also a marketplace because musicians are uploading their music to be playing on the platform. And I use musicians in a very broad sense here. This can be bands like U2 or Queen. It can be artists like, I don't play a musical instrument, but if I was prepared to sort of do that, record something, get it rightly, nicely packaged and upload, I could be on Spotify as well. And I know a number of friends in Malaysia who've done just that. And right at the other end, you have music publishers like EMI and Sony who are uploading catalogues of tens of millions of songs onto Spotify for people to listen to. And what all these musicians get is that they get exposure on the platform to Spotify's hundreds of millions of users, and they get paid whenever somebody listens to a track. So if a track's popular, they get paid lots. If a track's not listened to, they don't get paid very much. And that is basically the way the two-sided model works. I mean, nobody really has any direct relationship with Spotify. You just use the app if you're a user. If you're a small musician, again, you're uploading it, and you don't talk to somebody at Spotify. It's just app-controlled interaction. Where you've got a much larger music publisher, there are significant discussions and agreements about the level of musical rights, because it's then into the level of enterprise sales, and they're arguing, okay, how much do we pay per track listen? And so Spotify saying we've got X million users who are going to be listening, and the publisher's saying, well, we want 5 cents per song or 4 cents or whatever it is, and they have that argument. So there is a very much a direct sales relationship there at some level. How does Spotify make money? Let's just come back onto that. So from the users, so a bunch of users, about a third of I think it's about 180 million users when I'm recording this. About a third of the users use the free ad-supported platform, so they get to listen for music for free. They don't pay any cash out of their own pocket, but they have to suffer advertising because they're millennials and advertisers are targeting them particularly. They have to listen to ads every 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on the agreement the advertiser has with Spotify. Those who don't want the ads get to pay a monthly subscription, which is an all-you-can-eat, free access to all the music on the system, and it's these 100 million, 120 odd million users paying $5-10 a month. Then sort of is providing the bulk of Spotify's revenue. Some of these subscriptions are sold through, say, telecoms providers. So in Malaysia, for example, Maxis, the telecom provider, offers its sort of 10 million 3G, 4G subscribers access to Spotify at a discount rate that it's negotiated with Spotify as an affiliate mechanism. And then the artists, you have to pay X for an album to upload. And there are various fees that help Spotify out to increase its revenue through a number of upsells. And so that is the way that the business model works. Sorry, the revenue model works. And at the moment, it seems that artists are paying or getting paid about 0.006 dollars per listen, which works out you get $1 about every 16 times a track is played. And so that works out so that for the average user, Spotify is expecting them to listen about to 100, 200, 300 tracks a month. Obviously, some people listen to a lot more tracks, but you've got a lot of subscribers who don't listen to that much music. And it's important, I think, that the artist fees are there just to bump this up a little bit and sort of make sure that they do make a profit. So how does Spotify get new users? Firstly, word of mouth. I think I was told about Spotify by a friend. I've told lots of other friends about Spotify. So that's good. We've got the PR, which is reinforcing this. Lots of nice articles about Spotify, how it's disrupting music. That gets in a lot of the early adopters. Then sort of newspapers are talking about the top 10 tracks on Spotify, the 100 most played tracks ever. Spotify's coming up with playlists for absolutely every kind of thing. And this, again, is PR. It's getting people talking about music, which means that they're talking about Spotify, which means they're coming onto the platform and listening to music. And then finally, every track can be shared. I share music to my wife and say, hey, do you remember this song that we was listening to on a wedding? And she then sort of downloads Spotify to see which track that I'm talking about, and then she's another Spotify subscriber, which is great news. So that is the front end. That is how Spotify delivers its value proposition to its users and makes money. How does it actually deliver that on the back end? So basically, the key resources are the licensing agreements that it has with the music publishers that give it this huge stock of content that it hasn't had to create it itself, and all that music very much is there to it is what Spotify is selling. So if it doesn't have these licensing agreements, it's very difficult to get off the ground. Originally, the music publishers signed up because they were desperate and it was worth having a bet. But now, because Spotify has got a user base of hundreds of millions of users, Spotify is now a company that a force that is too strong for the publishers to ignore. So Spotify really has the balance of power in this transaction, and this is quite different to a business model like Netflix, which in many ways is very similar. The difference is in that I think in film and media production, the balance of power, the market is far less fragmented. So I mean, you can think about how many major companies are producing high quality content. It owns the BBC, HBO, are ones that everyone will often say come to mind. And then the channels will commission films, but there are maybe 200-300 commissioning channels in the whole world, and that's including some of the very small channels in very small countries. But a lot of the high quality content that everybody wants to watch is relatively concentrated into a dozen, maybe 20 commissioning channels, including Disney, for example. And then under that, you've got several thousand production companies. And so the cost of a film or a piece of content often goes into tens of millions of pounds. If you think about how much, say, Stranger Things cost to produce or how much Game of Thrones cost to produce, it's a lot of money. Whereas on the other side, for Spotify, a track can be reduced pretty quickly. I mean, who was it? Yoko Ono and the Plastic Population were recording tracks in a hotel room, for example. You can record music very simply, very easily. It's not £1 million endeavour. You can do it at home. You can lots of people. So there's a much lower barrier to entry. And the other difference is that for Netflix, the corporation saw that, okay, if all the content goes through Netflix, what are they? They're being disintermediated, and so they're now taking content back off Netflix, and Netflix is now having to spend billions creating its own content instead of moving away from being a streaming platform to being a much more traditional studio and production house in its own right, as they've seen the risk. Whereas the balance of power with tens of millions of producers, artists, musicians wanting to use the Spotify platform, none of them have got any power in relation to Spotify. If they don't want to come on the platform, Spotify says, okay, don't come on, you're losing out. Whereas Netflix can't afford to do that. So that's some very important things on the key resources and the user base, key activities, very much the platform optimization. That now seems to be fairly robust, fairly stable. There's not a lot happening. They're focusing on reducing the error rate, increasing the efficiency, driving down the cost of being able to stream the music. I mean, the amount of bandwidth that they must take up is absolutely horrendous. And how do you reduce that? So there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes to reduce the cost base. Because that's absolutely critical in driving their business model forward, and then increasing the user acquisition, more users after a certain point. We're definitely beyond that now because Spotify has broken even. More users just go straight onto the bottom line as profit, and that can be either shared out to the music publishers and the musicians as royalties down here, or it can sort of just go straight onto Spotify's profitability and margin. And probably it's a little bit of a split between the two. And then we've got the music publishers who are really the key partners here, because if they don't sign up, that's very difficult. And then finally, the cost structure. Most of the money that the Spotify takes in subscriptions is paid out immediately as royalties to the artist or after a period of time, and then of course there are the high platform fixed costs of all the servers, the technology platform, and the expensive engineers in Sweden. So this is the Spotify business model. I hope that's explained a little bit more about it. Do feel free to ask questions in the comments. I try and respond in 8 to 12 hours usually. Give me a like if you think it's worthwhile. Share it if you can, and also just give me a bell and say, Dennis, this is what the business model that I'd like you to come across and do next. And I'm always happy to listen and, of course, answer any questions that you've got on your own startup or your idea. So do reach out and get in touch.